What's up, everybody? It's Donovan Borum back again with another episode of the Best Man Podcast. Gentlemen, I hope that you've been productive. I hope that you are feeling well. If you're not feeling well, you're not being productive, I hope that you're finding resources to remedy that. Without further ado, I want to get into this segment today. And today, I just want to talk about two different topics that can kind of be related, but they can also be taken separately. And those are accountability and honesty. So this was something that I spoke with a lot of men about over the last couple of weeks. And on a side note, I do apologize for how long it took for this third podcast to come out. Been in a bit of a transition. I'm in a new space now, so kind of coming out of that. But I hope to get a lot more consistent in posting at least once a week. A topic that we can discuss. But anyways, wanted to talk about accountability and personal honesty, just because the last time we spoke, we talked about goal setting and the importance of having goals, and in having so, having that sense of direction, that sense of purpose. And I use Earl Nightingale's definition of success, which is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And so when you're working on those things, you have to have personal accountability. This is something that men mention over and over and over again when I stop them and ask them the question, what's one thing men need to be better men? And so in talking about accountability, there's different ways that you can go about accepting it. So when we think about accountability, we think about being in the wrong and just simply saying, I'm sorry. But you'd be surprised at how difficult that is for anybody, not just men. I think women struggle with accountability as well, but today's topic is about men. So when it comes to taking accountability, one of the first things to do is understand what your standard is. And just to give you an example, I used to work for a luxury hotel brand. And, in luxury hospitality, you have to have a certain standard that you adhere to. Everything has to be top tier. Everything has to be extremely detailed. You have to get things right the first time around. And so when you come into an environment like that, you understand from the jump that we have a really high standard. These are the things that we have to do to be, labeled as luxury. These are the things we have to do to be at the top where we are. When you go away from a company and its standard structure, you go into something like relationships. As men, we should always have standards for our relationships. As we're getting into relationships, women have standards for us. And so we always know when we're getting into a relationship that there's standards here. There's a set of certain behaviors that you must follow to meet so-and-so's standard. There's a certain set of behaviors that you expect them to follow to meet your standard, right? So knowing your standard, can apply to many different environments, whether it's a company that you work for, whether it's a relationship that you're getting into, and even, within yourself. And that's what I want to kind of get into the most today, is that personal accountability, understanding what your personal standards are. When you have those goals that you set out for yourself, typically when you break down how to achieve those goals, the measurable and the actionable part, you find that there's certain behaviors that you need to display on a consistent basis to hit your goal. If you're exhibiting these behaviors, you're more likely to, one, make them a habit, and two, get closer to achieving your objective. That's what makes you a success. That's what makes you confident, and that's what makes you a better man as a whole, right? So, when you're looking at your own personal standards or your own personal goals, you need to be addressing what your standards are. If you want to be structured, more disciplined, and one of the ways you do that to accomplish your goal is waking up at 5 a.m. Every day you need to be waking up at 5 a.m. That's your standard. My standard as a man is wake up at 5 a.m. and do X, Y, Z. It doesn't matter if you're waking up at 5 because you need to be at work at 6. It doesn't matter if you're waking up at 5 because you want to pray or meditate before you start your day. It doesn't matter if you want to wake up at 5 so you can go to the gym and get your exercise in for the day. 5 a.m. wake up time is your standard. So it's important to know what your standards are when it comes to accountability, because when you stray away from those standards, that's when you need to be taking accountability the most. And so when you find that you're in error, it's very, very common for people to make excuses. As a man, as you grow up, something that I'm realizing, and something that I think a lot of other men realize, is everyone starts out with potential. You've heard it said, oh, you have so much potential. Oh, this person had so much potential. As a man, yes, we all start out with actually infinite amounts of potential. Men and women, we all start out with infinite amounts of potential. But as we get older, that potential needs to be turned into results, because a child might be measured by the potential that they have, but a man out here in society genuinely is measured by the results that they achieve. So it doesn't matter how smart or intelligent or strong or charismatic you are. It doesn't matter how much potential you have if you're not channeling it into your results. So when your results that you're producing aren't in line with the standard that your company has set, your superiors are going to have a conversation with you. Hey, you're not hitting XYZ numbers. Hey, you're not coming in at the time that we've set for you. You're not performing to the standard that we've set. In a relationship, your partner might come to you and say, hey, these were the expectations. You're falling short on these. What's going on? When you're falling short, it's important. I would argue it's imperative that you admit your fault and be completely honest about the results. So just to give an example of what accountability doesn't look like. Back when I was in college, I was trying to pledge a Greek organization. And I forget how that semester went, but ultimately, I think I missed the grades or something like that. And when one of the brothers came to me and was talking to me about it, they were like, what happened? And rather than tell him straight up, hey, I missed a few assignments, I didn't put in the effort that I could have put in, I didn't go the extra mile to get the grades, I started saying, well, I had this happen during the semester. I had this relationship problem. I had this family problem. I had this, health issue, da 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 da. And what he said to me was, all I'm hearing is a bunch of excuses. And at the time, it hurt to hear it, because at that time I was used to, my excuses getting me out of being in trouble for whatever I didn't accomplish. And so when he said that, it caused me to reflect and think, he's right. There was absolutely no reason I couldn't have hit those grades that semester. There was absolutely no reason I couldn't have accomplished my goals that semester, which probably would have led to me getting a shot at joining that organization. But him saying all I'm hearing is a bunch of excuses helped me to realize that I wasn't taking accountability for the fact that I had set a standard for myself, a standard that might have been in alignment with that organization, and I didn't hit that standard. And rather than saying, I'm sorry, I didn't hit that standard, I missed the mark, I'm going to work harder next time, what I started to do was give off a bunch of excuses for why I didn't hit it. And as men, that's something that we simply cannot do in companies, in relationships, and most importantly with ourselves. When we have an idea, and if you're watching this podcast, you're probably a man that wants to be better or just wants to improve their life in some way, which means you have an idea of this type of man that you would like to be, which means you have a man with a certain standard inside of you that you're trying to hit. And we all know when we're not hitting that standard. We all know when we have goals, there's things we need to be doing, there's people we need to be seeing, there's results we need to be obtaining, and we know when we're not hitting that. When you need to be in the gym and you didn't go. When you were supposed to do that thing for your business and you didn't do it. We all know the truth about that. And so accountability often looks like looking ourselves in the mirror and being honest about what we haven't achieved, where we missed the mark. And it's very, very hard to do that. It can be it can be hard on the confidence. It can be hard on, the self-esteem. It can be hard on the mental sometimes, on the pride, on the ego, but you got to let that go. And you have to just be completely honest. If I keep using the 5 a.m. objective because that's something I'm getting consistent at right now as I, restructure the life around me. I know if I didn't wake up at 5 a.m., I know the truth. My partner might not know the truth. People that might follow me in life might not know the truth. They might not need to know the truth, but I know the truth. And, on a small tangent, people often say that depression comes about when you're consumed with things of the past, and anxiety is present when you're consumed with things of the future. And both of those things are true, but you can also experience depression and anxiety when you realize that the person that you are in this current moment isn't living up to the standard isn't living up to the standard of the person you've decided you want to be in the future. If you're someone that wants to be a business owner in the future, when you're not taking the steps to become a business owner, whether it's getting the credentials, whether it's getting the licenses, whether it's getting the education or the capital necessary to start it, when you're not doing the things you're supposed to do. And it's really, really easy to come up with all these excuses for why you didn't do it. But that's the weak way out. That's the easy way out. And that's the cold, honest truth about it, man. I mean, I know it's not easy out here, but if you have a goal, you have an objective, you have a standard for the kind of person you're trying to be, you know when you're not hitting that. The other week when we talked about SMART goals, it's measurable and it's actionable. Those action steps are things that you can tangibly be doing, and you know when you're not doing them. Taking accountability and being completely honest with yourself is admitting, hey, I'm not on my square. Hey, I'm not getting up like I'm supposed to. Hey, I'm not reading as much as I need to be reading to get the skills that I need. Hey, I'm not networking enough. I'm not XYZ. You need to be clear and direct about what it is you're not doing and admitting fault in that. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're incompetent. It doesn't mean you're incapable. It simply means you missed the mark this time. All right. And the last part of it is, we'll get into it in a bit, but the last part of it is making that promise to yourself or to whoever it is that you're going to do better moving forward. Because accountability isn't about downing, taking accountability isn't about downing yourself and trashing yourself for not hitting the mark. There are going to be days, man, when you get up at the right time, you do the right things, you say the right things, you meet the right people, you do everything quote unquote right, and things still blow up in your face. That's life. And as men, we need to be able to handle that, men and women. And I'll keep saying this because I know there's going to be people that get offended down the road that this isn't, that this might suggest that women have some other type of standard. We're not talking about that. We're talking about men specifically. It's okay to not hit that, but you have to continue to push to be better. You have to be honest about when you're not hitting the mark. You have to be honest with yourself. One of the hardest things you're gonna have to do is look in the mirror and say, you're not doing what you said you needed to do. You're not being who you said you wanted to be. You're not getting where you said you wanted to go, not because you can't, but because you're making the wrong choices. Being accountable is looking at the choices that you've made that got you to where you are. We all have results all around us. If you want to understand where you are in life, go back 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, go back 6 months and look at the choices that you've made. They're going to show you the results they're going to show you how you got the results that you got right now. And if you're not happy with the results, first of all, take ownership of them. These are where my choices have gotten me. These are where my decisions have led me. And it's not where I want to be. It's not who I want to be. It's not what I want it to be. This was the standard that I set for myself. I'm not hitting that right now. Now, at that point, after you've admitted fault, after you understand what your standards are, you got a couple options, right? You can commit to being better. You can commit to trying harder. You can commit to becoming more consistent and making a habit out of those behaviors that'll lead you to your standard, or you can change your standard. But at some point, you have to make that decision for yourself. Everybody has a standard for themselves that they want to achieve. If you're already at that standard, great. Keep it consistent. If there's somewhere you can find improvement as a man, I think you should always be striving for improvement. There's no such thing as a 100% man. I believe in a 90% man. I believe in a 95% man. It's very difficult to be a 100% man because there's always something you can be improving on. The day you decide that you don't need to improve anymore is the day you stop growing. And the day you stop growing is the day you start dying. So that being said, you need, when you realize that you're not hitting the mark, be honest. Take accountability. Say, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. If your objective was to get in the gym 4 times a week, if you didn't go to the gym 4 times a week. If your objective was to save X amount of money, when you spent too much. When you didn't save when you could have saved. If your objective is to, I don't know, you know where I'm getting at with all of this. No matter what the goal is, no matter what the objective is, when you're not doing the things necessary to hit it. And accountability, straight up, is being honest about you not hitting it. Not making excuses for why. Because, I don't care what time you go to bed, you're probably going to be tired if your standard is to wake up at 5 a.m. and you haven't done it consistently in the past. You're going to be tired when you get started trying to do that. That's not an excuse to not get up at 5 a.m. If you decide that what you want to do is get in the gym more consistently, it doesn't matter how you feel. Outside of injury and genuine illness, Not, it's your excuses don't matter. When it comes time to show your results, whether it's to yourself, to your relationship, to your company that you work for, or to your employees even, your excuses don't matter. No one wants to hear, oh, I was tired. They don't want to hear, oh, I was sick. They don't want to hear, oh, I was going through XYZ. The truth is that doesn't matter. Now, as far as taking care of your personal mental health and your emotional health, it's absolutely important. And you should always have a support system in place to make sure that that can be taken care of. But when it comes time to do the work and you're able to do the work, there's no excuse for not doing the work. And taking accountability is realizing when that's the case, when you could have done the work and you didn't do the work, when you could have made the call, you didn't make the call, when when you could have taken your partner out on that date that you promised them and you found a reason not to take them out on that date that you promised them. And this extends past relationships with your partner. It also goes down to your kids. Kids will accept excuses, but when you're raising, as a man, when you're raising a son that you want to be like you don't want to give them the habit of giving excuses. You want to show them that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. That's part of what being a man is taking care of your responsibilities, doing what it is you said you were going to do, despite the obstacles that life is going to throw your way. Like I said earlier, there's going to be times when you do everything right. Things still blow up in your face. That part of the accountability. It's easy to take accountability when things go right? Because, say you got up on time and you went to the gym. Yeah, I did that. It's easy to say, yeah, I did that. No one has to ask you, yeah, I went to the gym. I did that. You feel a sense of pride when you do that, right? But in those days where you missed the mark, it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to say, hey, I didn't make it here. I overslept. That's my fault. It's not going to happen again. I'm going to get better. And not saying that to somebody else, saying it to yourself. That's where the true accountability comes into play. As men, we shouldn't need someone to check in with us on our progress towards something. It's good to have that as part of your support system. I encourage all of us to find people in our lives that can hold us accountable, that we can hold accountable. I feel like as men, one of the first things we should do outside of affirming each other and having goals is find someone that can hold us accountable until we can do it ourselves, or find other people in our lives that might benefit from us holding them accountable, because it shows that we care, one, about our own progress, and two, about somebody else's. Men, oftentimes we do feel alone out here. And I'll say this every single podcast if I have to until someone understands it. You don't have to do things alone. As much as you might feel that way, that's not the case. So back to my original point, you shouldn't need someone to check in with you. If you said you were going to do XYZ for your partner, they shouldn't have to check in with you to see where you are with that. They shouldn't have to check in with you to make sure you're going to do what you said you were going to do. If a company has a standard for you or they have something that you need to get done, they shouldn't have to follow up and check in with you to make sure that you get it done. Part of being an accountable man is understanding this is what I agreed to do. This is what I signed up to do. And barring serious physical injury or serious illness, I'm going to get it done. And if I don't, I'm going to be honest and direct about my failure in that part. It's okay to fail. In this society, we've raised a bunch of people that are just absolutely terrified of failure. And failure is an everyday part of life. Every single day you risk failing. That is no excuse for not trying. That is no excuse for not putting your best foot forward. So taking accountability, let's go back over it. It's knowing what your standard is for yourself. If you're in a relationship, knowing what your standard is for your relationship, what your partner's standards are. If you're working a job or you have a business, understanding what your standard is for that business or for that position, what your company's standard is for you. Understand what that is. And when someone comes to you, they shouldn't, but until you get that about yourself, when someone comes to you and says, hey, you're falling short, being able to admit, hey, you know what? You're right. I'm lacking in this area. I need to do this better. I'm going to do this better. That last part is to making the commitment to yourself and to whoever else needs to hear it that you're going to do better. And I said that it also ties into honesty. I like to use the term brutal honesty, but some people can be a little soft, and I get that. When you hear brutal honesty, people think of tearing yourself down and just saying really mean things about yourself, about why you didn't achieve what you achieved, and that's not what I mean. All that I'm meaning when I say brutal honesty is to cut out all the fluff. And the word of results is, did you do this or did you not do this? Did you hit the mark or did you not hit the mark? Think of it as those classes where you don't get A, B, C, D, or F. You either pass or you fail. In this world, it's did you pass or did you fail? All of your excuses aside, did you pass or did you fail? Taking brutal accountability is realizing you failed and saying, I failed. Feeling that, committing yourself to a better result in the future, and then working towards that result and holding yourself accountable towards it. Again, you shouldn't need someone to tell you where you're falling short. You shouldn't need someone to check in with you. I understand that that's where you have to start. But as men, we need to get to a place where we don't need someone checking in on us to make sure we're doing the things that we committed ourselves to doing. That's all that it is for today, guys. If you need help being accountable, reach out to me. I'll drop my email in the comments or the link below. Just reach out to me and say, hey, Don, I want a little bit of help being more accountable towards XYZ. Let's work on a way to get you accountable. Every other week or so, I'll reach out to the men in my life and I ask them, I do like a little bro check-in. And I just ask them how they are. If they're people that have voiced they want to be held accountable for something, I just ask them where they are with it. I ask them how they're doing with it. And one of the last things, I didn't mean to talk about this, but one of the last things, if you find that you're not being accountable, if you find that you're not hitting the mark, find the time to ask yourself what happened. After being accountable, after saying you missed the mark, look at why you didn't hit the mark. If for some reason you find yourself unable to wake up at 5 a.m., ask yourself why you're not able to wake up at 5 a.m. Look at the choices that you make the night before. Are you going to bed too late? Are you hitting the snooze button too much? Is your phone so close to your bed that you don't have to move to turn it off? Maybe you got to put your phone across the room. It can be something as simple as that, right? So if you're missing the mark, yes, be accountable, admit it, be honest, be brutally honest. And when I say that, all I mean is say yes or no. I missed it. I failed it. I didn't hit this mark. Admit it. Admit it first and fully. I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I didn't do what I decided or committed to do. But I'm going to do it better next time. And then commit to that and hear. And then from there, take the time to realize why you didn't hit it the first time. And just repeat that process. And over time, a lot of different things are going to start to happen. One, you're going to become more consistent in your behavior. And consistency builds habits. And habits build, a lifestyle that can get you closer to wherever those habits lead. If the goal you set out requires that you make a habit out of certain behaviors, consistency in those behaviors will almost guarantee your success. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that doing everything perfectly will guarantee your success. There are some things that people want to accomplish that, might require a little bit more than their consistency in one area. It might require the help of other people, and that's okay. But as long as you're doing the best that you can, and you can look yourself in the face and say that, you're being the best version of yourself, and that's someone that you can be proud of, gentlemen. So with that being said, I hope that this helps someone out there today. If you need help being accountable, reach out to me. Reach out to someone in your group that can help you be accountable. If you know someone in your life that can benefit from this message, share with them and have a conversation about accountability, because I believe as men, if we can continue to be accountable in our actions as a collective, one, will be better men, two, will be more successful men, and will lead better lives. And like I said at the very, very beginning, when you're being the best version of yourself, you make it possible for others to be the best version of themselves. And that's our objective out here. Be the best version of ourselves. Because if everybody's doing it, the world is ultimately a better place. Gentlemen, this is the Best Man Podcast. See you next time.